Well, let's start our advanced formula and functions career right at the basics with a straightforward, probably the most used and the most popular function of sum. If we get the basics right, as we start to add in more and more complicated syntax, it will become logical and it will stay logical. So let's take the sales data working file, which is a collection of 12 sheets, one for each month of the year, and a number of sales values for the Inc. Corp. Now, all I'm interested in at the moment is adding, so the total sold for the North region, then for the South, then for the East, and then for the West. Now, the basics of any formula is the starting point is always an equal sign, regardless of what you're trying to do. So we start in the cell where we'd like the result to appear with an equal sign, and then the function in this case, and a function is a formula that works on a set of cells. So equals sum, that's our addition function. Now you can see when you start typing a function name, a list of options appear, and the sum function has others in its same family: sum if, sum ifs, sum product, sum sq, sum x2 my2, sum x2 py2, and sum x my2. So the functions can get really quite complicated. Let's start with the basic, which is sum. Once you've typed the name of your function or chosen it from the list, because you can use the little arrows to go up and down, we then need an open bracket to tell Excel that's the function name. Now we're hitting the open bracket, I need to tell you which cells to do whatever I'm asking you to do the function on. So in the case of the sum, it's going to add up a series of cell values, and I can highlight those with my mouse, or I can type them in, or I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard with the shift key. Whichever way you choose to go, it's the range that we're after that gets added in. In this case, it's B3 colon H3. So add up everything between B3 and H3 inclusive. So it includes the values in B3 and in H3. I then need to close my function with a close bracket and then return. And the result appears of 5114. The cell below equals sum, open brackets, tell it which range I would like to add up, and in this case I'm not going to put the close bracket on, and this applies to all functions in Excel. If you don't put the close bracket, Excel will quite happily fix that for you. When I press return, there is no complaint about a missing bracket. When I go back, I find up here in the formula bar that Excel has put the close bracket on for me. Now we could continue in the same vein for East and West, and even for the total row, or we can go back to the formula cell above and replicate this formula down the rest of the column by taking the little handle in the corner and dragging down. And what that does is it copies the cell contents. Now in our case that's a formula, and all formulas, until we look at absoluteness, are relative. So copying the formula from there to there makes it now add up that row. Coming down to the next cell makes it add up that row. Now there is a slight problem in copying the formula down, in that it not only copies the formula, it also copies the formatting. So we see that our total row, if we just click away, we can see the bottom thicker border has gone and been replaced by this dotty dash border. If I undo back to where I was, which is there, if I want to copy the formula down, but I don't want to copy the formatting down, then I can do that by grabbing the fill handle as normal, but then clicking with the right mouse button and holding down, dragging to the bottom of the list just as I did previously, but this time, because I've dragged with the right mouse button and let go, I get a set of options. And one of those options is to fill the formatting only. Well, that's not what we want. We want to fill without formatting. Then when I choose click, it replicates the formulas, but as I click away, I can see it doesn't adjust the formatting. The formatting remains the same as that cell before the formula arrived. So let's right click on the dragging option to get that fill without formatting. Let's have a quick look at another very common function, which is the count function. So we start here in the count sales, equals count. Now just like the sum, there are a lot of count functions: count, count A, count blank, count if, count ifs, and we'll be looking at most of these. but it's a straightforward count one. So once I've chosen the one I want from the list, I can open my brackets and highlight the range of cells that I wish to be counted. Now the count function will count the number of numeric values in a range. So in our case, every cell is filled in. I'm going to get a return of 7 because there are 7 numeric cells. Let's replicate this value down. So we're looking for a little black cross. There we go. Right mouse button, drag to the bottom, go, and then fill without the formatting. So that will replicate the count function, but not adjust any of the formatting. And we can see that my borders then stay intact. Now the result here is 7 every time because there are 7 cells with numbers. If I were to delete one of the cell contents, not only do the sum values change, but the count now drops to 6 because there are only 6 cells with numeric values in. So that's the 2 very common functions of sum, count, but they're there to show the basics of formula building, the ability to replicate your formulas and not destroy the underlying formatting of the cells that you're replicating your formulas into.